Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, America's Cup fans. Come up for air. Holy moly, that was another day out at sea, wasn't it? We had two more races in the Louis Vuitton Cup final. We had, well, an exciting first race up to the point that it stopped. And then I think we had the fastest sailing race in history for race number 8, but I'm happy to be corrected on that, and I'm sure the keyboard warriors will chime in, but I think we had the fastest sailing race in history in race number 8. Again, no spoiler alerts here because I'm sure you all watched it. We went one apiece and we're tied at 4-all. And to talk through the two races of the day, we've got Giles Scott, Head of Sailing Operations, or something similar of that title. I get it wrong every time, don't I?
Just Head of Sailing, mate. Easy.
Head of Sailing.
3 words.
And Head of New Haircuts. Lovely haircut. Yeah. How much did that cost?
It's amazing, isn't it?
How much did that cost?
The world we live in, how a haircut becomes a news story. Go on, Fred.
It looks like a cheap one.
It was. It was.
It was. I bet it was under 10 euros, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Copy that.
What was the name? What was the name of the place?
We can't advertise on
No, we
this.
can't advertise on this. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on from Giles's bang average hair, we're joined by Ian the Gooby Jensen for the first time. Lovely to have you, Goobs. Gooby, you're obviously part of the sailing team. We're rattling around in the AC40s, currently sitting with us as part of the coaching team and the Perth team through ups and downs of life. You're kind of rejoined us in Barcelona in the last month, and you've been a big part of why the boat has got so much faster in the last month. So it's going to be great to have your input on boat speed stuff and the nice trajectory that we've got on, particularly in this big breeze. Actually, you made some comments earlier about how you were pleased with a few of the gains we'd made. So
Thanks, Fred.
good to have you along. Yeah, you know.
Good to be here.
And Gooby, just before we went live, said, I don't know what to do with my hands. So we're going to try and figure out what Gooby does with his hands on telly. I think you're intimidated by Lee's hands yesterday, right? When he was just doing this.
A little bit of bar karate.
Sorry. I need to calm down, don't I, Giles? A little bit.
Still on that caffeine high.
I'm still on the caffeine gum. Like, it takes so much caffeine before I go yachting now that, yeah, I can't sleep and I can't stop talking.
Handy for this, at least.
Yeah, handy for this at least. Right, calm down, Freds. Here we go. Giles, wind conditions today, son.
Yeah, top end, southwester, pretty much bouncing right off the wind limit. We said yesterday we thought we were going to start on time, and we did start.
Yeah, you're doing well on those predictions.
Yeah, we started on time, and the second race, little delay, but yeah, just sneaked through the upper wind limit range, and then as soon as we got through the 5-minute window, the breeze took another step up, and the whole race was actually over the wind speed official limit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So race number 7, we were kind of sat around 20 knots, and Goobs, you for the racing, you're up in one of the big towers looking over the race course. Could you kind of recognise that breeze build in between race 1 and 2?
Yeah, I guess I sit up in one of the big towers with our pre-start coach, Ian Williams, and we try to give a little bit of info on racecourse bias and if there's anything unexpected coming. But yeah, you could see it gradually building and feeling a little bit more solidly across the course. I think when we first got out there were a few more holes around, and then yeah, by the end it looked pretty fresh to frightening, to be honest.
But we were kind of on the J5 all day, and there was never really a conversation about stepping off that necessarily, was there? Or maybe early on, I don't remember.
I think when we first got out, was it like 17 knots or so?
Yeah.
So it was just into J5 territory, and yeah, I guess we all expected it to build and the wave state to come in as well. So yeah, I think we're on the right sails today. I think if you had anything smaller, you'd take it again.
Yeah, copy that. Isn't it mad that race day 5 in this LV Cup predicted winds were historically meant to be between 10 and 14, and we've had 4 race days out of the 5 above 18 knots.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't have expected it, but it's the classic with yacht racing. It seems wherever you go,
it's never like this here.
It's never like this here.
Yeah.
And this is another one of those weeks, but it's going to change.
It's going to change. We'll get onto that at the end of the show. Yeah. We'll hold that bit of info back, Angles. Right, let's talk about the first start. We entered here on, let me get it right, port. I often get those wrong, but we did enter on port. And a good bit of breeze in 20 knots. So roll the VT, Louis, and we'll talk through our first pre-start. Giles, take us away.
Yes, as you say, port entry. Nice, reasonably easy cross for us here, and took the option to double tack up to come into this following position, and see here the guys get a nice jump, and extended on. The Italians were maybe a little bit early, but did quite a nice job of killing the time, and the end result here is the yacht's pretty close, with a reasonably tight windward leeward setup, but yeah, both yachts up to good speed, and yeah, it was a full-on drag race out to that boundary one.
And Goobs, we had Swizzle McMillan on yesterday, and we asked him to talk through some moments of his racing, and he drifted off into another planet and got very dulcet and danced with his hands. For you as a pilot trimmer in these pre-starts, with the amount of information you're taking in off your screens, with the amount of verbal information you're taking on, with reacting to the other boat, it is like full-on data processing moments, these 2 minutes, right? It is hectic.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of working out what the helmsman's next move is going to be, and
Right.
you know, for every bear away or round up or jibe or tack, there's a lot of stuff that needs to move and a lot of stuff that needs to happen, and I guess you just really don't want to hold that process up and put the boat in a bad situation.
And the margins that we're operating in, let's talk about kind of foil, how we're moving the foils and how we're moving the main sheet. We're looking for such precision now to be perfect. Like, not only are you trying to second guess the helmsman and the tactics of what's coming next, you've then got to execute your kind of movement of your HMI and then land the sails and the foils perfectly. It's full on, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and in these windy conditions, you end up having to ease a lot of the gear off for the bearaways, and then that obviously has a knock-on effect to that last little trim on into the start, and so it's a lot of management and a lot of actually pushing the envelope a little bit to see how little ease you can get away with, so as you're a little bit ahead of the game.
And saving the cycles.
And saving the cycles,
good lad,
yeah, that's
Goober,
right.
son.
Yeah, so that's a hard balance to find, because keeping the gear on is all well and good until it's not, and then you find yourself in a hell of a situation with leeward heel and the boat getting out of control and all that sort of stuff.
A fine balance indeed. And then, as Goob said, like the final trim up onto the line is a critical 10 seconds, and we kind of came off that line even-ish, Giles, and headed out to the left-hand boundary.
Yeah.
And arrived there together and effectively tacked together.
Yes.
Louis, if you roll on to the next video, I think we've got that tack. And here we go.
Yeah, here it is. So you can see here we led into the boundary zone. You can just see it there on that last little shot, the kind of bluish tinge. So as soon as we enter that zone, we own the zone, and we can just swing the yacht onto port tack. And Luna Rossa have to keep clear whilst we're inside of it, and it's a really tricky, rulesy situation to deal with, because the port starboard basically switches on and off.
I was going to ask that. So why do we have the rights here in that blue zone, Giles?
It's a rule put in place, like in other boundary style of racing. It keeps the yachts inside those fixed points, and it deals with the port starboard rule. So effectively, if you are closer to the boundary, as soon as you enter that zone, you've got rights, and there's no restrictions on that boat in terms of speed. So if you're close in Prada's situation there, they have to be expecting you to tack, so they have to move immediately. And there's a lot of judgment in this, because depending on the separation of the yachts, when the inside boat's going to then sail out of the zone on port, as soon as they're out of that zone, port starboard back on.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a lot in the finite placement of where you put the yacht, if you're leeward or windward.
And Goobs, as soon as we landed this tack, we normally go up wind around 40 knots, both boats, obviously very similar in speed and performance. But Ben made the call that they're in a high mode here, we're kind of matching, and we were going upwind on this port at around kind of 30s, I think. So we were 10 knots slower than our targets, let's say. In your world as a sail trimmer and a pilot, that really kind of affects your setup of the sails, your global setup when you're in a high mode?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the apparent's changed. The apparent wind speed goes down, and briefly the apparent actually gets a bit narrower, and then sort of comes back a little bit as your VMG decreases. So you've got to make all those adjustments. But yeah, I guess in this situation, we actually did quite a nice tack here. We had a bottom speed of 33, and Luna Rossa, I guess, drew out the turn a little bit. So they had a lower bottom speed, but just drawing out the turn meant that they got nice and tight under us, which made our job hard. I guess
from that point, Goober, I think we kind of tacked away and the boat split at the top half of the upwind, I think. I can't quite remember. Louis, have you...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, good. Louis, have you got that? Here we go. Oh, as if by magic. I know, this is the... Yeah, there we go. Tacking away. So there's the split, and then we come back, kind of stepped up a bit further, Giles, and that was a big moment on the race, the long port over to the right boundary.
Yeah, it's interesting. The TV didn't actually pick up on it, and neither did we on the water from the chase boat. But Luna Rossa had a bit of a wobble on the port tack that they were sailing after they rebuilt as we split away.
Right.
Not sure if it was associated with the same issue they had on the bear away, but either way, what it gave us was a nice opportunity to nail a nice lee bow tack and lead around the left turn.
And then, as you said, Giles, leading around the left turn, Luna Rossa can either choose to follow us round and try and beat us to a jibe, or do a tack bear away and split the gates. Sort of what would make your decision up with those two tactical options if you were kind of following around?
to me.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, yeah, I guess it's just a case of risk management, to be honest. It's if you want to keep the game close, or if you see opportunity with more pressure on the right turn. I think the tack bear away in that top end in these sort of boats is a really hard manoeuvre to pull off, because you're a bit slow into the bear away and the apparent comes right back. So it means you either have to take more downforce on your foils, or you've got to ease the sails further. So I guess they were expecting maybe a little loss in the manoeuvre, but potentially a small gain going towards that right-hand side.
Yeah.
So yeah, they obviously they had some sort of issue with the boat, or something happened in the bear away that didn't go their way. But yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, and Louis, obviously from that moment, they had this nose down and bow down and stuff, Giles, which you don't like to win a race like this, and we really don't, and we genuinely mean that. We are enjoying this racing with them, and it's tough to see. Like, that's a tricky way to end a race.
Yeah, it is, and we're not sure exactly what led to it or caused it. I know from, again, I'm sure some of the viewers would have watched this back as well. You can see Bruni talking about having an issue before the bear away, saying to turn some automatic function off. Not sure what that was referencing, but they clearly had a bit going on with the yacht before this.
Right.
And this bit here that we're watching is just the result of that, I think. And yeah, nose down, and few of these soft fairings blown off around the mast base, which aren't, they're not structural, they're just cover plates. We have a similar setup on our yacht. But yeah, head to win for the rest of the race.
So they retired from that race. We sailed around the course, albeit at 70%, which is Cyclers Rejoice, and they retired. Their point was awarded to us, and again I will say, it's not how you want to win a point. You don't want to win a point from your opponents having a breakdown, but you'll take them any way you can when it's as fierce a battle as this. And then you have got to doff your cap to Luna Rossa for, I saw some helicopter shots, all hands on deck, getting the boat fixed, ready for race 8. And you have to say full credit to their shore crew and their sailing team, and you saw people running around with sticky back and duct tape and just doing everything they could to get ready for race 8. So well done to those guys. That was a hell of an effort. And we started race 8, Giles, as you said, it was delayed a few times.
Yeah.
And then it dipped just under the wind limit, and away we went.
Yeah.
with the second pre-start.
Yeah, real nice little 5-minute dip in that wind speed limit that allowed us to get away. We entered here on starboard tack. They crossed, and there was just a bit of an issue that we had that caused us to be a little bit out of position, which led to this here, which you can see, opting for the late roundup. Couldn't quite get a tight enough turn radius in to stay inside the boundary zone, and yeah, picked up a 75-meter penalty, which frustrating start for sure.
Yeah, it was a frustrating start. It put us behind, as you can see here, off the line. And Giles, as you said, that was a 75-meter penalty, so we have to go 75 meters behind Prada.
Yeah.
And the penalty's wiped, and then sail as normal from that point, effectively.
Yeah, and as it panned out, the penalty cleared pretty quickly after we crossed the start line, and yeah, then it was game on, trying to claw them back.
And Goobs, from that point in the race, for the first 2 laps of that race, we were out of phase with Luna Rossa. We were kind of boundary to boundary up on the first 2 upwinds, and boundary to boundary on the first 2 downwinds, and the lead fluctuated anything between 100 metres to 350 metres, but on the third upwind, by being out of phase with them, we fell in phase with the breeze, and Luna Rossa had to start defending us and tacking on us on the third upwind, I believe. It got close. It got within 3 seconds of that windward gate, I reckon.
Yeah, it was really impressive to see the guys come back after a bit of a tricky pre-start. I guess the thing that impressed me the most is the boat was going really well, and when we had an opportunity to be in phase with the pressure, we really did cut down that distance really quickly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the lead boat here, they get to pick which side they want, really. If we want to get some leverage on them, we've got to go the opposite side to them, so that they have the pick of the draw in terms of where they want to position their boat with the pressure and what sort of mapping they want to take around the gates. But we managed to pick up some good shifts, and we did come right back into them. They then obviously spent the extra manoeuvres to get back in phase with us and try to put a little bit of hurt on us, which made our life a little difficult.
Yeah, and Goobs, you are deep in the matrix of numbers and data and boat speed and tacking angles and all of the data coming into your head. You've seen 4 days of big breeze.
Yep.
And you have seen an improvement in our performance in the breeze in those 4 days, and as you have seen in Luna Rossa, I know. It's just an example of how the teams are getting more and more dialed into their boats, and the performance is stepping up and up and up and up.
No, it's great. I mean, everyone feels like they're pulling together in this team. So you've got a lot of people who are watching the racing, getting all the data and doing a lot of overnight analysis. And you obviously can't change too much day to day, otherwise you just won't be able to execute it. But
right.
We come away with a few little ideas from some of the guys on shore and from some of the guys inside the sailing team as to what we could maybe try to make the boat go quicker. And it's good to see those rewards, and I'm sure the other teams are doing the same thing.
Absolutely are, Giles. But the remainder of that race, yes, on the third lap we closed it down, but there was no way past. As we have seen a little bit in this Garby condition, it is fairly straightforward to shut the race course down once you're in the lead.
Yeah, and it's not that it's necessarily straightforward. I just think that the error counts from both teams are actually pretty small.
Yeah.
2 evenly matched boats, and if you get ahead, they've stayed ahead, right?
Well,
either way.
Look at today's
I
racing.
saw them.
That fundamentally, both races were decided on a mistake from Luna Rossa in the first race, us in the second race.
Yeah,
if we're going to be brutally honest, that was the outcome of the day.
Yeah.
And all the other sailing was beautiful and precise, apart from those 2 moments from both teams. And that's, I think that will sum the day up. But I think what we did see today, which for all of the people who really, really care about high top speeds, I'm not sure if we do necessarily, but we did do one bear away, I think in the second race, maybe last top mark, where we did what we believe and what the comms team have told me to say is the highest speed ever achieved by an America's Cup yacht during a race of 55.5.
No, I think it's
Knots?
6.
56
If we're
knots.
splitting hairs. No,
No,
55.6.
50. Oh, I was going to say.
Giving you an extra 0.1.
Yeah. Okay. 55.6 knots.
I think so. Yeah.
So just to clarify, we think it's the fastest speed ever reached by an America's Cup yacht during a race, because I'm sure other people might text in and go, well, in training we did 70 knots or something like that. You never know. Maybe Paul Goodison will write in and say, well, in American Magic, in the last cup we did 70 knots. But that's just Goody's style.
And it kind of just shows how hard the yachts are being pushed.
Yeah.
Like we like, you know, it's not that we've never done a bearaway in 21, 20, 22 knots before.
Yeah.
It's just we know how hard we have to push to beat these guys, and you can see that they're taking the same approach as well. You know, they did a bearaway over 55 knots as well. So.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Goobs, this is a great question for you from Vince B. What is the idea behind dropping the Windward foil halfway at the top mark? Now, they've obviously picked up on the fact that we have various different bearaway styles, like your one board, your two board, a kind of half board that we've seen through a lot of teams. Without giving too much away, there is like a few variations of bearaways.
Yeah, I guess it's to give people like you a little bit of a break, Freddie. No, it's as we get to the top mark in the big breeze, you have to ease the jib and the main sheet a lot, and then that's obviously got a knock-on effect to getting down to angle without dropping the bustle in the water. So if we've done a big ease on the entry to the bearaway and we don't want to stay high and fast for too long, sometimes we'll just put it down to support the boat for a second while we get everything back in.
There you go. It's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate.
Apologies for the chuckle there, Goobs, but I've just read the next question.
Yeah. So this is from a mate of mine called Nick Pearson, better known as Priscilla. He said, Freddie, my colleagues at work are obsessed with your shiny legs and ask what razor and moisturiser works best. Thanks, Nick. Just to clarify, I know that my legs aren't in the wind, so it's not an aero thing, but my legs get so tired that Alex Hobson, our head of sort of keeping my legs going, gives them a good old rub every night, and if they're hairy, he pulls all the hairs out and it really hurts. So I shaved them, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. I get a lot of feedback. What do you reckon? All right or not all right?
Not all right.
Not all right, Charles?
I'm not sure Alex Hobson's going to like his new job title of head of keep my legs.
Keeping my legs going.
Yeah.
It does way more than that.
Yeah.
My legs are better than your lid. Right, Rob McFarlane. How does the boat recharge in between races, spare cyclors and batteries, Giles? How do we do that?
Yeah, so we have a cyclor rotation. We rotate. We generally rotate everyone. There are a few times that we don't, but that's our standard setup. And then with the yacht, there's a couple batteries. They've got a battery life that we need to stick to. We get a percentage readout like anything, and all the shore and systems guys manage that and make sure that we've got enough juice for one race.
Juice ready to go for, and well, legs and batteries for sure. A question here from George Skoudos, who is a great mate of mine, a legendary marsman from the 2003 and 2007 Cups, and mentored me back in 2003, great legend of the sport. And he's asking about the G-forces in the top and bottom mark roundings. Now, they are pretty up there, aren't they, Goobs?
I reckon Giles is probably a better one to answer this one. You've done a little bit more sailing more recently, mate. How are those G-forces?
I think the best bit of footage to see this is some of the upshots from the cyclor cockpits. I was watching the racing yesterday, and I think there's a camera beneath Shrek, and you can just see his body just go left and right. Yeah. And there is a lot of G-force, and at the bottom marks, it's the perfect case because you know you've done a good bottom mark rounding when you are getting flung against your cockpit sidewall. Yeah. Like we're fighting leeway in these boats when we're turning them, and that's I suppose what we call skidding around. And like in a car, when we skid, it's not quick. It's not a fast turn up. So if you're getting thrown around in your cockpit, your leeways are down, and generally you're going better for it.
Yeah, and in cyclor world we've put a lot of work into sort of padding the side of the cockpit, and just before you're putting the watts down in a straight line, kind of setting everything up for the bottom mark turn, and just before you know they're turning, you have to twist your body and lock yourself into the cockpit, because if you're not ready for the throw, then you can't put power down at the biggest moment. So you do have to brace against it. And I think, to be honest, Gio, the G-forces are quite a bit bigger than when you and I were sailing 10 knots back in 2003, mate. But yeah, good fun. It is good fun. Giles, what are we looking at tomorrow? We're going to day 6. We're going to do races 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. What is the weather forecast looking like?
Yeah, so 9 to 16 knots. It's real switch up from what we've seen over the past few days. Sea state's back 0.8 to 1 metre.
Is it aligned? Do you know the breeze and the sea state?
It's reasonably aligned.
Okay.
There's a bit of variability in the direction, but it's going to be out of the eastern quadrant. So yeah, onshore breeze, sea state, plenty for the yachts to manage. You know, it'll be a tough day.
And Goobs, you being involved in the coaching performance group, it's a little bit of, now it feels like we've parked that windy stuff. Take your learnings, but park it, and it's a bit of a different briefing for your trimmer group tomorrow, right? Just a different mindset again.
Yeah, I guess changing the mindset and getting used to sailing in the waves, especially, is going to be something to get your head around tomorrow. You have to get used to all the margins you need, and the geometries with the cant and the rocker line clearance and all that sort of stuff. So that's that'll be something that'll be a strong focus in the warm up, and yeah, I think that we'll do a good job at making that switch, and
yeah,
hopefully get a couple of good ones tomorrow.
Let's hope so, mate. Touch
Yeah.
wood, touch wood, touch wood. I think that's a good spot to park it, lads. Giles, thanks for joining us as always. Goobs, thanks for coming, bud. Great to have you on
good
the
to be
show.
here.
We are still going, aren't we? We punch them, they punch us back. That seems to be the nature of this one. Trust me, we are really enjoying it. It feels a privilege to be involved in this series against such a great sailing team. And it keeps rumbling. And you can join us tomorrow when we talk again about races 9 and 10 in the Louis Vuitton Cup. See you tomorrow on the Inside Tack.